All right, you guys. So we have been living off-grid-ish. We'll tell you about the ish part. Solid 2 months. The last month we have had an outlet. And so that's been really nice.
Yes, we've been in the tent for 3 months now.
Yes.
2 of those months were entirely off of the power grid.
Yes, and now we still get 100% of our water from the creek. We get to charge our white noise and our phones and our camera and stuff without turning the generator on, which is really nice. But we're still using propane heat and wood heat and then the water. And so we're going to talk about, would we recommend this? Would we not recommend it? What are some things we've learned being here for a quarter of the year? Do we plan to stay? Do we plan to leave? Because we've gotten a lot of mixed reviews. We've gotten a lot of people being like, that is so cool. I totally want to do that. We've had people think it's really romantic and people think, wow, that is crazy. I don't want to do it. And so we want to be really honest with you guys. If you're considering something like this, what are the pros and cons of it? From our perspective, having been in our situation for the last 3 months. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoy this episode. If you do, share it with someone that you know and love. That is how this podcast gets out to more people, and by you guys leaving ratings and reviews. So thank you so much for all of you that take the time to leave those ratings and reviews. We know that that is not something that is just super easy to do. You have to go out of your way to do it, and it means a lot to us. So thank you guys. And we're going to dive right in.
The Now That We're a Family podcast.
And in fact, today we are going to be real. We're going to be raw, and we are going to share the good, the bad, the ugly, and the beautiful. There we go. We still have to keep it even, right?
That's right. So just a breakdown maybe of, if you aren't familiar, if you're just jumping in, what we have. Because I feel like everyone who is in a living situation like this has different amenities at their disposal or doesn't. So things that make this possible for us are, we're out on a piece of property. We are, 15 minutes from a grocery store. So that's nice. So we aren't like hauling in our goods to the middle of Alaska. Okay. So that's a really nice thing. It enables us to keep our ice chest full easily for 3 or 4 days at a time. Run and grab something from the grocery store. Something else that's super nice is we do have a creek that is year round. It doesn't freeze in the winter. It doesn't dry up in the summer. It's fresh water. And that is our life source. If we did not have live water on the property, we have friends who are dry camping, and I do not understand how they do it because we bathe there, we filter drinking water, we use it for everything. And so that's something else that makes this very doable for us. I would say those are the biggest things that are wins. And then something, as it has chilled down in the evenings, we're heading into October here, and some good friends of ours loaned us their wood stove that is specifically made for a tent. So the tent that we bought, our canvas wall tents, have stove jacks in them. So they have a place where you can put a stovepipe going out. They're built for this, and they're built for actually winter camping. So a lot of people use them to hunt and stuff like that in the winter. And so we got that stove in there that was built for the tent, and it is just roasty toasty in the evenings. So that's something else that really was a game changer heading into the fall.
Yeah, and then another variable is, I think, just the general climate for where we live. Because when we moved out in June, we are coming into North Idaho summer, we did have some hot days, but it is a pretty, moderate climate in the summer, where you've got beautiful sunny days, very little rain, usually not extreme heat. That probably was the biggest pain point up until this point, was some of the hotter days and not being able to escape that. And then now that we're going into the fall, we're kind of, we'll kind of get into our plan, but it's still, again, very moderate so far. Here we are at the end of September, and we've had some cold nights. It's gotten down. I don't know if it's reached the 20s yet, but since I started paying attention, it's gotten down to 31 degrees a couple times. And so I don't know if it hit the 20s before that. So it's chill, cool. It's cooling down.
Yeah, you wake up and you see your breath for sure.
Yes, and that's why the wood stove was a game changer, because we're able to, especially now with some new firewood that we got, it burns a lot slower, and just, it's great. So we can fill it up and, right before we go to bed, and it burns through the night, keeps the tent at a great sleeping temperature, but you're not worried for the health of the kids, right? It's not like you said, you're now we actually don't see our breath. You can see your breath. We could see our breath there a few mornings in a row. And then we got the wood stove. So anyways, that's what I say.
Yeah, no, that's good. So anyways, I think we've heard some people that we've talked to have been like, oh, I'm totally considering that. And other people we've talked to have said that totally destroyed my health. And just along those lines, I would not recommend this for anyone who is going through a health crisis. This is not a serene retreat. And so everything is incredibly picturesque. It looks like every picture we take out here is like gorgeous, okay? And looks so serene and so restful, and that moment is. But it takes so much energy to live without modern conveniences. And so it takes a lot of mental energy and emotional energy and physical just strength and capability. And so it's something that I would really say it takes a toll on your health. You don't know when you're going to be sleeping or when you're going to have to get up and do something in the middle of the night due to weather or whatnot. I'm so grateful for Elisha. He's super strong. He moves everything around here, which is huge, like stacking the firewood, carrying gravel, hauling water from the creek, building our fires in the mornings. Like, it's just this constant physical thing that you're doing for our family. And that's a huge peace of mind to me, knowing that he's capable of doing all those things. Same with like all the little predators we've had and your like late night hunts. Like, you need capabilities and it is going to wear on your health. It's not going to build your health, is all I'm saying. So don't go into this in an unhealthy place. I totally believe it when people say living like this gave them an autoimmune condition or something, or revved up their autoimmune condition, because it's taxing on your body.
You're so right. I mean, and I can say the same to you with just your physical capabilities, and the fact that we came in to this season with you being in good health made it possible. Because every task that you now perform that used to be considered, not used to be considered, it just always was a part of your daily routine. All those tasks are physically demanding, far more so here. I think they're always physically demanding, even in like a modern home, but I'd say it's like 10x that out here living in a tent and then being off grid, especially when we didn't have power. And so second what you're saying, it's this thing that's like almost counterintuitive, because it's more restful in some ways than, like, more rest has occurred probably than any other time in my life out here, and it's more physically demanding than any other time in my life. Like, those two things are coexisting. And so I've had like the best sleep I've ever had out here, and I've also had the most sleepless nights, because you're, like you said, you're chasing critters out through the night in the woods, or a rainstorm rolls in and you're trying to get everything covered up. And then also, like you said, the photos, like the picturesque moments are more picturesque than what I had, I think, anticipated. Where you're like, this is unreal that we're living this right now. But then right before that moment and right after that moment is a lot of work. And it just is, it's just in very physical work. So I'm never really begrudging the work, I don't think.
No, yeah, there's a lot of fulfillment in it.
Exactly. But you get to the end of the day and you're kind of like, whew, I'm wiped. Like, I didn't even work out today. I didn't go for my run today, but I'm physically wiped. So it has been a really interesting experience in all of that.
Yeah, I would say it's stuff just like you squat down at the creek to wash dishes instead of like standing up at a sink. Or like, I was just like straining noodles today, and you have this cast iron pot and I don't have a strainer that fits all my noodles. So you're like, I'm like squatting to like dump this pot over, and it's like you feel it in your back and your arms and everything. So anyways, and then I would say though, because we're living without electricity back here. So when we talk about our electricity situation, we have one outlet. We have like 800 feet of extension cords, and it comes back. And like I said, we can charge one thing at a time in this outlet. So it's not a super like, we don't have lamps or, Vitamixes, crock pots, like anything like that. And so we're still using all candlelight or battery powered light or propane powered. And I love that because our bodies are on such a circadian rhythm out here with the light cycle. And so it gets dark at 8 o'clock now, 8:30. I want to say close to 8.
Yeah.
And like, I'm in bed consistently at 8 and going to sleep.
Right.
And I love that. Like, my body is so ready for it. And so I love that because it's been a huge day. But then I'm getting like 8 or 9 hours of sleep every night. So that's been amazing and something I would like to continue when we move into a more electric powered environment.
Yeah, that is going to be the interesting thing. Because like you said, we've been sleeping more than ever, but it's also felt like maybe we needed to sleep more than ever because of the lifestyle. And so I do wonder if the modern comforts and conveniences decrease our need for sleep, or if we've just gotten used to not, you've just gotten used to kind of living life tired or underslept.
Well, I don't get like an afternoon lull out here.
I don't either.
So, and I would at home.
That's a good point.
And we are getting up early. We're getting up between 5 and 6 every day. So we're getting up when it's still dark, but going to bed really early and still getting a good chunk of sleep. Right. So I don't know. Fall is here. A lot of us are kicking into new systems and routines, and the Get It All Done Club is for the woman who wants to stop drowning in motherhood and wants to start thriving. If you want to have more free time to do the things that you love to do and become more efficient at the tasks that you have to do each day, join the Get It All Done Club. There's thousands of women who have been through the program and who are currently in our private community that is off of social media. I'm in there monthly, live, answering your questions, talking with you guys, adding new content monthly. If you would like to get a little taste of what I teach in the Get It All Done Club and see a behind the scenes of what the program actually looks like, I do have a free masterclass for you guys. It's linked down below, and it will teach you how to have a more peacefully productive home this week. Anyways, that's a whole thing.
Yeah, but I before we move on from that, I do think it's a really good thing to. I don't think I had considered it prior to moving out here, and it's funny because when I used to watch like prepper videos or even like what would they be called? Just like, I don't know, just like shooting videos on YouTube, like self-defense type videos and home defense. You'd get on and you want to hear like the tricks and the tips and the hacks, the kind of like, like the secret knowledge. And the first thing all these experts would say was like, you have to take care of your physical health. Like that's your number one asset if you want to be, living in a self-sustained way, if you want to be able to live off grid, if you want to be able to live off the land. Like you have to be in good physical health. And that was always such a boring answer to me. And it was the same thing with like self-defense videos. And yet I'm very much now a believer of that fact, where if you can't just like walk for miles and miles and miles a day or be on your feet for hours and hours, day in and day out, I think I didn't realize it until like a month in or a month and a half in, where I was like, this is physically demanding and very challenging. And so I really am a believer in that reality. And like you said, people go to nature for retreat and for recharging, and that is different than this. I still think nature is a wonderful place to go to heal your body and to find good health, and it's a peaceful place to recharge mentally and emotionally and physically and spiritually. But living is in that environment is different. And so I would almost, if health's a current issue for you, stay in your convenient living situation, meaning the modern conveniences, and then try to get out to nature, for hikes and for walks and things like that.
Yeah, venture out
Yes.
versus just live full time out. So anyways, that's something that we wanted to address in terms of, would we recommend it, would we not? And I have been pregnant during this time, but I do have very healthy pregnancies. I do think being outside the first part really did help my nausea. And then, but I do think I had a big lethargic season too in the middle of summer that was really hard for me, just being pregnant out here. And now my energy's back up now that we're over halfway through. So anyways, that's something to consider. Another thing is, how comfortable you're going to be outdoors is really dependent on your gear. So there is no such thing as bad weather. There are only bad clothing. There's only bad clothing. And I think that's even magnified out here in the tent. Like when you have a wood stove, your tent's cozy. If you don't have a wood stove, you're freezing in the morning and all your kids are going to wake up with runny noses, If you don't have down sleeping bags, again, everyone's freezing. You do have down sleeping bags, everyone's warm. So things like wool socks, things that dry quickly, boots, like you're living so exposed to either the heat or the cool your gear is what you're dependent on when it comes to your comfort level, and gear is expensive. So that's just something to consider, because a lot of people look into living in these situations to cut cost, and it is really appealing to not have to pay 2 mortgages if you're trying to build, or, if you're looking at just straight up like, I'm going to build a tent or, put a camper on a property or something and live there. It can really cut cost, but it can also, if you're going to be really comfortable in that environment and outdoors a lot in that environment and enjoying it a lot, then you're going to incur these other costs of your gear. At least that has been true for us.
Yeah, and we considered that when we were looking at the pros and cons of renting while we were building versus living out here. And we considered the financial aspect of it. And what's fun about this area that we put the tent, we viewed it as an investment in the property. We really want to keep the tent set up long term, even when we have our home, and make it cute and cozy for kind of guest quarters. And I think it's a nice addition to the property. And so we decided to put what money we would have put towards renting and invest it into the tent. And again, depending on how many months we end up being out here, we could very much be ahead. I'd say we're getting close, with 3 months in, and when you consider putting a deposit down in a rental, probably a minimum of 6. It would have been hard to find a month-to-month. So we probably would have had a minimum of 6-month rental first.
I do think we're ahead.
I think we're ahead
from a rental situation, like a 3-bedroom suburban rental. I think we're ahead.
Yes,
for sure.
We're getting more and more ahead each month.
Yes,
because we're all those. Yeah.
So it's I'm not saying there's not a cost at all, but I am saying, like, enjoyment wise, if you set aside some money for gear, you're going to enjoy it much, much more, and you're going to be less stressed. If it's like, okay, if you realize a pain point, like we realized, okay, before we had the tent, but just in general, it's like, okay, the kids are getting out of their beds and freezing, taking off their pajamas and putting on their clothes. And so we bought long johns. That's like, it wasn't super expensive, but just that difference of them sleeping in their long johns, getting right out, not having to change them and just put clothes over, made a huge difference in their comfortability and in our comfortability with them in the elements. So there's just things like that. Have maybe a gear fund, because you don't know what exactly you're going to need. You might buy a ton of stuff and not end up using it. So I would recommend going bare bones in the beginning, and then just kind of seeing what, we moved out here in the summer, and so we didn't have down sleeping bags for all the kids. But then as we realized, I think we're going to take this into the fall, we made that investment. And a lot of the stuff that we are purchasing is a long-term investment, like Elisha said. Like, these are things that have been on our list that we would like to have for a long time. And we didn't do any big purchases like solar panels, or like we bought a generator, but we'd like to have a generator just in general. So, I mean, maybe you want solar panels for your backup power for your building or something. But like, if you try to consider it like, okay, what are things on our list that will help us in our living situation long term or in our camping situation long term, then it's less of a just out and it's more of a win-win.
Yes, exactly. And I think we were very much on the same page in regards to that from the beginning, which made all the extra expenses far more, endurable. When, like you said, kind of all of a sudden you have a couple cool nights and you're like, wow, like, we've got 5 kids. We need, we needed 4 down sleeping bags and then like this cool down onesie for Lionel so that he could stay in that. And that stuff's not cheap, but it is quality, and we wanted that long term, even for future camping trips as a family and just the lifestyle that we want to be able to live. So it was much easier to stomach when, like I said, one, we knew we were saving money because we weren't renting, and then we also knew we wanted to invest in these things long term.
Yeah. So, I mean, I got a rain jacket since moving out here. I got rain boots. I think having the school tent was by far the biggest expense for us.
Like extra.
Right. And that wasn't necessary again, but it was one of those things. I think it was $1,500 to get that extra tent. But that's something I would recommend that I think I said before. I would go a little smaller on your main dwelling and have an option for a second, a second little getaway, and split the cost of those two things. Because having space, if you're napping a baby, especially with little kids, because you're just dealing with different nap time schedules, and you want to be able to sometimes do stuff with kids in a warm place or in a climate controlled place while someone's napping. it's really nice, and it made me feel way less claustrophobic. I didn't feel claustrophobic at all, actually. Being able to get up in the mornings, have somewhere to go, have somewhere to have a quiet time, or pull kids aside, or Elisha and I to go visit. All those things have just been so different than living in a fifth wheel that had no doors on it and was super tiny.
Yeah.
So I get that sometimes you can have that even if your fifth wheel's big enough.
Yeah.
You can kind of separate that up. But having a second space, it just enabled me to think.
Yeah, and the nice thing, because it is a smaller tent, it is much easier to heat. So we don't have a wood stove in the small tent, but a little, like, well, you've got
That
your
little propane thing
heater.
rocks.
Yeah, it heats it up pretty quickly, and then and it keeps it warm. And so that is a huge win. And I think that when we really, each time when we made that investment, I feel like we mentally committed to a little longer out here.
Yeah.
And then when we got the wood stove, we like mentally committed to a little bit more time. And so where we're currently at, I mean, can I share
just where are we?
what the current plan is? Because when we moved out here in June, we only committed to the summer. Basically, we're like, okay, June, July, and August, like that. We know we love being out.
I think we actually moved out here end of June.
End of June. Yeah, you're right.
So July, August, September.
That's what we had committed to.
Yes,
You're right.
okay.
July. Thank you.
Just in case someone's paying attention to the podcast, if you
Yes.
down in the comments to let us know we're a month off.
You're right. So we had committed to being out here all of July, August, and September. And because even our property, it's closer to our favorite lake that we love, that we would go drive to from our house in town. Our property has a creek that we would drive out here and play in all the time last summer. And so we just knew we liked being on this spot in the summer. So it was easy for us to commit to that. And also, I think town and like us, subdivision living is a little trickier in the summer because everybody's home from school. At least it was in our subdivision. It was so busy, so much action going on. It was really hard to keep our kids, accounted for, to keep, neighbor kids out of our yard and out of our house. We wanted to be hospitable and show love, but we also needed some boundaries, and it was a lot harder to keep those boundaries in the summer than it was. And so there was a bunch of variables that
our house had no AC, so we would constantly come outside anyways and go on hikes.
Yep. So anyways, I say that all to say, moving out here at the end of June was a no-brainer, and the 3-month commitment just was very easy. Now that we're, fulfilling that 3 months and we're looking to October and to November, we have every intention to be out here, I'd say through November. And then as we're watching our build, we're really going to be kind of like, hopefully in good communication with what the timeline of the completion date is. Because really it's not even that we don't want to live here in December, because I think we would enjoy being out here in December as well, is that we don't want to have the baby here in the tent. And the baby is due at the end of January. And so if it looks like we're not going to be in our new build, within a couple of weeks, before having the baby, then I think we will look for rentals, ideally short-term rentals, if we can find one, maybe a month-to-month situation, and go get into that. But right now, especially with the wood stove, the second tent, we've loved and again, we haven't experienced cold weather. We haven't experienced a lot of rain or snow yet, but again, it's gotten cool. When you wake up and it's in the 30s, you kind of get to feel that crispness, and you put your jacket on and you go outside. And so far, we've much preferred the cooler weather to the dog days of summer, I think.
Something else we've added on is a tent cover. So our tent came with the option of adding on like a porch cover for the rain. And so that was something that it has rained multiple days here in a row. We just haven't it hasn't socked in for a week or something like that, like it will in the spring. I'm curious if that even happens in the fall, because when we were all preparing for the rain, and then we started thinking of our falls here, and we're like, honestly, it kind of is pretty dry and then kicks into snow. So we'll see. We might not be dealing with a ton of rain. But we got that rain cover, so I'm able to move the Blackstone up onto the porch and cook there. The animals are able to stay on the porch, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that was a good
big
addition.
Investment. It was, because now we just have that boot area, so we're able to kick our boots off in a covered area. You can leave them out there. Because
we were running all our shoes inside in the middle of the night when it would start to rain, or in the middle of the afternoon, and that was all just complicated. So that was a good thing to do. And so it's so funny. I was talking to my mom on the phone, and I don't know how most people's parents would respond to them living in a situation like this, but I was telling my mom, I was like, Elisha and I already had talked through, I think we want to winter as long as we can here. And then my mom, I was telling her about the situation, and she's like, Katie, I think you guys should just stay there until your build's done. She's like, I mean, you only do this. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity. It'll be so fun in the snow. And I'm like, I see why you did all the things you did with my dad. Because she's just like trying to convince me to stay here in the snow. But yeah, and as far as builds go, because this is the thing, is you guys probably heard us say we thought our build was going to be done in end of October, or potentially getting close to a finish line or something. But builds just take their time, and you don't know what delays you're going to run up against and stuff like that.
Yeah, and we did the classic. We made some changes, which
we made some changes.
Bumped it back to the engineers, and so it's all very self-induced.
If I put in air quotes, like we lost a month, we did, and we just would rather do it the way that we want to do it and take our time on this front end. So that's why we say we have no clue when this is going to be done. Our builder's awesome. He's working as quickly as he can, but we don't have this and I don't know if any homeowner ever has this in concrete date of when they're going to move in. So we're just trying to stay flexible and think months out and think, okay, right now the baby's our deadline.
Yes, exactly. Okay, real quick, if you're looking for music lessons for your family, piano lessons, guitar lessons, fiddle lessons, ukulele lessons, mandolin lessons, you can subscribe to Voteberg Music Academy and get lessons for the whole family. Subscribe to the piano course, one subscription, get you piano lessons for the whole family. Subscribe to guitar, that gets you guitar lessons for the whole family. We'll link it below. You get a special discount, and you can see that below by listening to our podcast. That's how you get the discount. Go check it out.
And I mean, I'm kind of the mindset that I just love to deliver out here. But Elisha had a really good point, and he's like, Katie, we don't have showers, our bathrooms and outhouse. How's the healing process going to go for you? And what am I going to do with all the kids in the snow? So that's probably not a wise decision, and I agree with him on that. So yeah, we'll just see how it goes, but that's where we're at. Do you have any regrets, Elisha?
I do. I think something that a mistake we made early on was resisting, and this is a principle that I thought you and I had lived by and had learned from and would hopefully continue to live by, but we fell into the trap of trying to keep a part of your life at arm's length. We've talked about this when it comes to parenting, when it comes to your marriage, when it comes to any aspect. When you try to kind of manage it at an arm's length instead of embracing it, then it is actually far more stressful and far less enjoyable. And we did that early on, even in kind of how we plan, because we knew we had some necessary trips in the summer. And our thought was, well, hey, we can extend these trips so that we can, be staying with your family an extra week and be close to, be at a place with showers, right? And running water. And then when we go to my family's, we'll stay a little late because for this necessary trip, we'll stay a little longer so that we can have the amenities that we don't have out on the property. And that was counterproductive. The trips themselves were great. We should have just done the trips for the necessary amount of time and then come back home and then embrace life here. And as soon as we stopped trying to kind of escape might be meaning look to trips as this getaway that was getting away from the discomfort of the property, and we started looking at our property as home and a place that we needed to make a retreat and a place that we wanted to be. It was I don't know about you, but it was a night and day difference. And there was a switch that was flipped, and this place became so much more enjoyable. We discovered systems. You can create systems in any environment. You just have to do it. You have to create them. And so in the first month, or really the first maybe month and a half, we didn't have systems. And so we were having some good moments sprinkled in to the stressful, no power and trying to do work online with, spotty Wi-Fi and hot, very high temperatures and not really having a good flow for all the things, right? Sleeping, laundry, food, you just go through the whole list, and we were making it work, but it wasn't a flow. It wasn't a routine. And so we were looking to trips as being this kind of reprieve from that. And that was the opposite of what we should have done. We should have minimized the trips, embraced here, because as soon as we did that, life got so much better.
Yeah, you're so right. And I think another thing for me is as soon as we got more solidified on this isn't temporary, we're just going to live here as long as we can, then it also stopped that like, oh, well, should we invest in this now or should we not? Or should we? It's just like, hey, let's just make right now work for us.
Yes.
And let's just do it to the best of our ability, and let's not wait until we go into maybe a rental or until the barn's built or all these different things. And it's just, I don't know. I feel like it was like, okay, well, if we don't have a morning routine now, I'm not going to wait for another 6 months. So let's just do it. Let's just start getting up in the morning. Let's just start doing school and start doing work and all these different things. Elisha never stopped working, but I did.
Yeah, but and this was inspiring because you just kicked into your morning routine. And then I was like, well, what? Like I was holding off on jiu-jitsu. And I was like, well, why don't I start jiu-jitsu now? And then you started your workout routine instead of waiting until our home gym, right, to be set up. Yeah. We started kind of practicing, honestly, what we preach. Yes. And you didn't realize you had gone away from it. Because you viewed this just as such a temporary season. You're like, well, this isn't we're just getting through this season. And then a couple months go by and you're like, oh, like all of us, like we actually, if we're not doing it now, then why? Like, what's there to make us think we're going to do it in the future when we have the building?
Yeah, I would really separate our time here into like 2 chunks as of now. It's like the first month and a half, which I can't really blame us for trying to get our feet under us that first month and a half, and then the last month and a half though, where I just feel like it's felt like home. We've been home actually a lot more. We have all our rhythms and routines, and it's just us outside in a tent. And but it feels like the Elisha and Katie Votberg family again, not just like scratching and clawing to stay ahead of the tidal wave of life. So
yeah, I'm with you. I don't think we need to beat ourselves up about not finding routine, because I think that is inevitable anytime you make a change. I think if we would have moved into an apartment or just a rental house, we would have felt the exact same way for a chunk of time. And so I think that is inevitable when you bring a new child into the world, when you start a new school routine, when you move to a new place. There is just when you start a new job and there's a new schedule with that, there is the inevitable learning curve of trying to find your footing. And in those times, I think we do gravitate towards kind of escape. You're looking for comforts. You're like that escapism of like, okay, we don't have our footing, we don't have our routines and our systems that that we can lean on, and so you're kind of gravitating towards comforts that can come through a variety of things, obviously, and they're not always terrible, right? They can be fine, and so I think that was kind of an inevitable season for moving, and it has been encouraging to, like you said, there really is two definitive seasons so far in living out here, and it truly feels like home now when we walk up to our tent. Physiologically, I feel the difference, because I think that was something that was always so discouraging in those first 6 weeks of living here, is we'd be on all these trips and you come back exhausted, right? Because everybody knows you come back from a family trip feeling exhausted. And then we'd walk up to the tent and it was not a place of rest. I was like, oh, like I just saw work and like physically demanding things. And so it's been really rewarding to get to the other side of that, and to now come home and to feel that physical letdown and the comfort that comes with it. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's a blessing.
It is.
Okay, so this is real quick rapid fire. There were like 3 decisions we all kind of made at the same time. One was to move out here. One was we got pregnant like the same time. And the third was we got a puppy all at the same time. Yeah. Okay, so do you regret moving out here?
Oh, no.
No.
Yes.
Okay.
And even in those stressful moments, I don't think because we always went through the whole thought process from beginning to end. And we've been on the same page with, okay, do we want to keep our house through the summer? No, we want to sell it now. Do we want to move into a rental in town? No, we don't. Do we want to be out on the property? Like, we had all these checklists that we could always refer back to, even in the stressful moments. So, yeah, what about you?
Yeah.
Have you regretted that?
No, not for a second.
Right.
Well, I say not for a second. After the first 3 weeks, no. I was going back and forth on that. Like, do we shoot ourselves in the foot productivity-wise or anything like that? And we didn't. So, really grateful for that. The baby, do you think it was crazy time? Should we have waited?
We are so pumped. I mean, that is the beautiful thing about the blessing of life. It is the greatest treasure that you can ever experience here on earth, physical treasure. And so there is that's what's so fun about just like trusting the Lord with his timing and blessing you with a child, is because sure, circumstantially, like, could we think of a more ideal time? maybe if we sat down and like penciled it all out. But when it comes to human life, you're God blessing you with that. It's like, when are you ever going to say, like, God, this wasn't a good time. Like, I don't want this gift. I don't want this blessing. So that one, from the day we found out we were expecting, that has only been a gift and a blessing to think about and to know is true.
Yeah, I've never regretted it. And it's funny because people talk about a good time to have a baby, but I'm like, when are you able to carve out a full year? 9 months of pregnancy, 3-ish months of recovery. Mm-hmm. And it's like, and just, even if you do that, we've never had a year where there hasn't been a million other things that happen that we didn't foresee happening.
Yeah.
And so we've just always just had the babies.
Yeah. And this is,
I'm grateful.
This is
so grateful.
Extremely anecdotal. And I know we've shared this. I think the other reason that's interesting is to think about is because the only time in our marriage that we've said, hey, this is the perfect time to get pregnant. Because most people know that we haven't done a lot of, preventative measures when it comes to, pregnancy and child, bearing. But there was a season where we were kind of timing it for a variety of reasons. And we were both in agreement. It's like, this is the time. This is so dialed in. The time of year is perfect, where we're at with work, with living. Let's get pregnant. We got pregnant. And then that's the child that the Lord decided to bring home, that we miscarried. And it's just so humbling, right? It's sad, and you just realize, boy, man plans his ways, but the Lord directs his steps. And you take every single human life and moment here on earth, and you realize the true treasure, that the true miracle that it is. It is such a miracle that we have, the 5 children outside of the womb right now, and this child in your womb. What a gift each and every one of them are. And I really don't think maybe we took them for granted, prior to that miscarriage, but we certainly don't anymore.
Yeah.
It's a real gift.
Yeah. Okay. And then the puppy.
Yeah, this is a tricky one, because I'd say that I've regretted getting the puppy because of the timing. Well, I should say this. I love our dog. Gentry is awesome, and he is a great dog. He has caused a lot of stress over the last, when did we get him? 4 months ago, 4.5 months ago. Trying to get our house ready to sell, right? Keep that clean. You got this new puppy that's throwing up in the middle of the night and going to the bathroom and all over the yard and in your house. And then you move out here, and, neighbors have chickens, and there's woods all over the place. He's getting lost. He's nipping at the kids, right? We're living outside. And so you can't just send the dog outside and to get him away from the kids.
He goes in the tent if he wants.
Yeah, exactly. Early on. And then the kids are outside all the time, and he's nipping at them. And that was our kids are so resilient and have such good attitude. They've loved being out here. That's probably been maybe one of the top 2 or 3 highlights of being out here, is how much life our children have in their eyes and just in their voices. They have just been crushing it out here. And I love that. They just have had the summer of their life. But Gentry was a real challenge until, I'd say, about 8 days ago. So until about 8 days ago, I would have said, if I could undo this, I would. Even though I liked him, I was like, great dog.
Well, because then we got training. He got really well trained. For a puppy, he's pretty well trained.
I agree. Yes.
Yeah, he's excellent. So then, but then 8 days ago, that was before 8 days ago. This is maybe a month ago. We started okay, stop the nipping, stopped going in the tent, all that. And then what happened 8 days ago, though?
Well, as it cooled down in the evenings and we got the wood stove and it started warming up, that attracted a lot of critters. Okay. So, I mean, a bunch of things that we probably don't know about that we're getting into the tent that we were sleeping through, but the things we were aware of were skunks. And so skunks never got into the tent, fortunately. But
Elisha's been quite the mighty hunter, taking out the skunks with his handgun.
2 skunks, with my pistol in the middle of the night, running around. This is the classic, dad living out in the woods, running around in your boxers with a flashlight and a handgun. You're like, this is probably not a good idea, but I want to do this every night. I hope it happens again tomorrow. That was awesome.
He crushed it. I've been so thankful for him because it was terrified. And these skunks were being pests. They started getting in our food. So all summer, people have asked about bears or all these things. We haven't had anything in our food. And we've like left it out in garbage sacks. Like if I don't have time to put away the groceries or I haven't made time, I just leave them out. Well, okay. Got cold. The skunks started coming out.
Yeah, so we've killed.
Just take them out.
2 skunks so far. There are more, and so I'm still on the high alert.
We just found out there was a third one.
Yes, at least a third. And then I would say what tops it all though is so for the last, what would you say, 2 or 3, 4 weeks, we've been feeling these. Like I said, we've been sleeping great, but then you would feel these phantom. What would you call them? Just like
something running over me in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
And I'd wake up, my heart pounding, and like grab Elisha. I was like, pfft. And I'm like, I feel like something just ran over me. And he has a flashlight right next to his bed. So he'd flip it on and look all around. And you wouldn't see anything. And I'd be like, whoa, I am having night terrors, like running through my hair. These things. But immediately I'd turn on a light and nothing would be there. So anyways, I just thought I'm going crazy. And I mean, I will say this. We've had tons of bugs in the tent. So it's not even like, I don't even think, like I roll over and I feel something in the bed and I just squish it and throw it out. Like I don't turn on a light. I do not even care, right? At home, in a regular house, I'd flip on the lights and dust out all the comforters and freak out. There was a spider in the bed, and as it is, like, hey, whatever. But these are really freaking me out.
Yes, and it happened to you 4 or 5 times where you wake me up, and I never didn't believe you, but we could never confirm it, right? And so then you're like, maybe it was just in my head. I don't know. And then one night I felt it. And then it was the same thing. It happened so fast. You wake up, I grab the flashlight, and then I'm wondering the same thing. I'm like, is this in my head? Yeah. Like, because there's no evidence that anything actually just ran across me. And then one morning, okay, we get up and your routine.
Oh, wait, real quick. You think you see a chipmunk tail one night.
Oh, yes.
The tip of a chipmunk tail.
Go underneath.
Underneath our, like, wood hutch thing.
Yes.
He's like, I think there's a chipmunk that's been running over us. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense. There's, like, chipmunks everywhere. Okay, yeah. So then I wake up and Lionel has this plastic bottle and it had a little bit of milk left in it, and I left it sitting like at a nightstand at the end of our bed. And in the morning he wakes up at 6:30 and I cannot find the bottle anywhere. And I'm just like, oh, no. So we bring Gentry into the tent that night, right?
I can't remember if it was that night or not.
Because he startles at midnight.
Right.
And was like looking over there at the nightstand.
Area. Yeah, that's a good point.
And I thought, and this is like, we decided to let him not sleep in his crate. And we're like, we're bringing this dog in here.
Yeah, we're really becoming dog people.
Right at the head of our bed on his little mat.
Yeah, that's right. Because we thought maybe his presence in here will deter the chipmunks or whatever.
Yeah.
From coming in, and I woke around midnight to him kind of starting and looking down
standing up.
Standing up, looking at the end of our bed. I was like, whoa, what is that? I turned the flashlight on, didn't see anything. He went back to bed. We went back to bed. The next morning, you go to give Lionel his bottle, and it's gone. And
we turn everything, everyone wakes up, turn everything inside out, look outside the tent. So if you guys are familiar with our tent, we have the flaps of the tent hanging straight down the sides of the wood platform, so the rain just goes right off. So we don't have they are like nailed loosely to the side, but stuff can definitely go up and down. Like it's not like gaps. Airtight. It's not like a camping tent in terms of a closure. Like it's not one piece, the floor and the ceiling.
Yes,
and the
exactly.
walls. So anyways, then we get these kittens.
You're right. We got the kittens.
Okay, so Elisha tells me.
It's been a big week.
So Elisha tells me, he goes, Katie, we aren't even talking about animals. He's like, I just need you to promise that next year is a no animal year. And this was before 8 days ago. And he's like, the dog has just been a lot. And Elisha knows me, we're going to move into the barn. And I immediately think like chickens and cow and 3 horses are a great idea. So just months in advance, he wants to prepare me for this like pre-contract of moving into the house. I'm like, okay, that's cool. Someone reaches out and says, hey, we have kittens. Do you want kittens? And I was like, no, I just agreed to my husband. I'm not going to bring up animals for a year. Then all these things start happening. And so I'm like,
well, we also started seeing more mice over by the food too.
oh yeah, we started seeing mice over by the food. And we're like, this is going to be a crazy fall. Like we're going to need some farm cats. So I bring up the kittens to Elisha and he's like, yeah, get kittens. So we bring in 2 kittens.
Yeah, the day one, they earned their keep. Because they take off underneath our deck that the tent's on. And so we get to pull the flashlight out and we're looking down there. And what do we see? Like Lionel's bottle for one.
In a giant nest, like bagels, dirty diapers,
Socks, shirts.
Huge nest under the tent.
Shoes.
Like 2 feet big. And then the kittens are chasing something around down there. And it's a giant pack rat.
Yeah, I mean, this thing...
evil looking pack rat.
Yeah, the pointy nose, like the rat.
The glowing eyes.
Yes. We're like, what? This has been in our tent every night for how long?
Well, the fact that the bottle was down there in his nest in the center of the floor, like it didn't just fall off outside.
Oh, he came up, grabbed it.
It just
drug it down
gave
to
me
his...
so much stress to look at that thing and be like, that has been what's been running over me. And you know what gives me more stress is that since it's been gone, it stopped happening. So like, I know that's what it was. It wasn't the little chipmunks or anything. Okay, so thankfully, I mean, the cats didn't do everything because Elisha gets out his trusty handgun later the afternoon.
I know. I need to get like a 22 rifle. So my firearm situation here, I've got like a big game hunting rifle. I've got an AR and I've got my pistol.
We've got all kinds of weapons, but not the right one.
Yeah, I need to get a 22 for the varmints. So yeah, once again, another pistol kill with the pack rat.
Under the porch.
Yeah, that one was actually a pretty cool shot.
It
was like laying prostrate and one hand with the
Honestly, the kids were all standing behind him, and I have the dog and the cats, and we just look like the zoo behind Elisha to make sure no one else gets hit. Just this pack rat under the porch, and he just nailed it.
Yeah.
So, anyways, we're pretty proud of our mighty hunter over here.
Oh, stop! No.
That's true.
Yeah, well, I do feel like that last skunk got the best of me because it's. I saw him. I saw his tail. I didn't have a clear shot. I got a better angle, and then he was gone. And that was, 3 nights ago? And he hasn't shown his face since then. So, I mean, maybe I know he's still around. He's going to come back, but I got to be ready.
You're going to get him. Mm-hmm. So, anyways, that said, Gentry's been sleeping every night in the tent with us. And it's a comfort, isn't it?
Oh, no doubt. Yeah, going back to Gentry, I know that's this all started. So now listen, even when I regretted getting him, I still liked him. Does that make sense? Like,
yeah, it's like I wouldn't do this again, but since we did it, okay, it's a win.
He's a great dog. I like him. He looks cool, and he's not the worst behaved puppy I've been around. We did hire a trainer. His behavior has gotten dramatically better each week. Mm-hmm. And then just the usefulness of having him in the tent for the critters has been really nice and a real comfort.
Well, it's been a real comfort for me too, because Elisha was gone really, really late one night, and I don't think he would have gone if I hadn't had Gentry in the tent.
No doubt, yeah.
But it was just really nice for me to be able to like go to bed, know Gentry's right there. He startles if something startles, like with the skunks or with the pack rat or whatever. He does jump up and...
He's gotten more protective too over the last 2 or 3 weeks.
The testosterone's coming in, I think.
It is. Yes.
We're grateful for that.
Yes.
Because he would just sleep through everything.
Yeah, I think those first couple months, I'm sure all sorts of animals were walking up to his crate, and he did not care at all. And so...
Like, what are you? Some little baby puppy?
Because that was the thing, actually. The first couple weeks, I thought it was going to be a long summer because we had a lot of coyotes those first couple weeks, and they would come up to the tent, and Gentry wouldn't do a thing.
He wouldn't care at all.
And I was like, dude, this is literally why we got you. But then the coyotes went away. He's been chasing
the turkeys.
Yeah.
He's just been like a lot more like predatory in a good way, like protective.
Yes.
And so we're grateful as we're going into fall and winter. That's more when it matters for us. And we feel like, oh, he's actually starting to like earn his keep a little bit and make us feel a little bit safer out here. The whole animal against animal thing.
No doubt.
I will say it really did complicate the training getting 2 kittens. Because, the whole cats and dogs thing. Like, the kids love the kittens, but it's all a whole new adjustment process for the whole life cycle here on the property.
But it's funny, because I haven't gotten attached to the cats. I'm not going to.
No, I'm not either. They're just going to be feral and outdoors.
Right, exactly. They're going to be, barn cats. But but they are very useful.
Yeah.
Like even these tiny little things, you just see how they are quick.
They're so fast.
Yeah, and you see them chasing the mice. You see them chasing things. You're like, okay.
We've had a lot less, even like chipmunks and squirrels around since they came.
Yes. So that's been a win.
So, yeah. So, anyways.
Yeah. Any regrets for you, Katie? You asked me if I had any regrets or.
I don't have any regrets.
Nice. That's great.
I mean, like thinking about it, I agreed with yours.
Sure.
That like mindset, I think mindsets for a lot of things coming out here. And I kind of wish we'd had the mindset of like, let's just live here through the end of the year or something when we moved out, because it just helps you settle more when you have a longer time frame.
Yes.
So I just feel way more settled having a longer time frame. And if the baby wasn't here, I think I'd feel even more settled, because just like, let's just like, I don't want to move again.
Right. Yes.
We've gotten so spread out here, and like pulling us all back together in a suburb would be a huge adjustment change. Even if it's for a month or 2 months, that would feel like a big transitionary season. And especially with all the livestock we've collected.
Yes, exactly.
So
that's a good point.
Cramming us all in a house again. So anyways, I just feel like we've really adjusted, and I'm really, really grateful.
Yeah, and a comforting thing has been the most of our family thinks it's awesome that we're doing this, but even the ones that were more skeptical or were kind of like, you guys, like, you're going to get a rental soon, right? Or we're kind of uncomfortable with the situation. Some of them have come and visited and are like, oh, this is awesome. Like, I totally see why you guys are staying out here. So I think it's hard to picture maybe our setup, but in my mind, our setup is like so dialed in. I love it.
It's pretty comfy.
I think it's very comfy. And so, yeah, I'm just going to keep.
Yeah. Even like the tent having carpet in it, or like stuff's just warm and cozy and homey. I love candlelight. I've grown so attached to candlelight.
Yes, same.
I mean, I do think like if I was to say like some of the most difficult parts of being out here are having a crawler. And so I have to remind myself, I was telling Elisha, we're reading about nomads and stuff like that with the kids. And I'm like, you know what? Kids have grown up in dirt for thousands of years and didn't have landscaped yards or these nice homes and stuff. So that's been an adjustment, because I feel like it's hard on the crawler. And he has just gotten very gung-ho. That's the crazy thing, is he's like some little caveman baby now, where it used to be like, oh, he'll stay like on the gravel area or he'll stay on the dirt area. And now he's just like, you have to keep track of him, because he's just off through the sticks chasing the kittens up trees. He doesn't go up the trees like that caveman.
But he'll go like into the brush.
Yeah, he'll just go into the brush. Like, he's over being held back by stickers and sticks and dirt. So he's just caked all day long. He gets wiped off before he gets in his bed for naps and stuff and bed. But I think you're just really dirty out here. And that's something I'm not going to miss. It's like, because you pick up babies and then you're so dirty.
Yeah.
And so, like, I don't love having like dirt under my fingernails all the time or stuff like that,
Yeah, I'd say that has been another challenging element, is like when you're doing life out here, you dress for it, you are mentally prepared for it, and it's awesome.
It's great, yeah.
It's when you like try to quickly or spontaneously go do something in like civilization where you might want to like get a clean shirt on, or you like change your shoes or whatever. They're kind of like, well, this is a huge deal. So like you're going to meet somebody and you feel like you should, dress a little nicer, or going to church or whatever. And you're like, great, we'll get our church clothes on. And from the time you get them on to like getting to the car and not getting crazy dirty is really hard.
Yeah, it's tricky. So that's something, because we do leave the house for an event Sunday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I'm trying to think. Monday sometimes. Lucy and I leave Monday. Yeah. But it's like pretty consistently there's a time during the day where like, okay, like everyone goes straight out, get in the car, and I don't change my clothes until everybody's in the car, because it's like someone's going to touch me and I'm going to get dirty. Yeah. So anyways, that's something that's been like a little trickier than what I mean, kind of dumb, but it's like a real thing. And then I just think you can't be a germaphobe. I mean, you can, but you're going to really lose sleep over it, because there's just dirt and everything.
Well, I feel like this is the cleanest environment I feel like this is so much cleaner than living in a town or around.
But I mean, like, okay, I guess like the kitchen setup and like dishes, food, everything's just like a little dirty.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really bother me, honestly.
Yeah, me either. I think about it when we have guests over.
I do too. And I
scrub a little
think,
bit more,
oh
like
man,
we should.
I don't want them to see how I'm washing the dishes in the creek without soap.
Yeah.
Okay. But that's it, you guys. I think. Do you have anything else that
Nope.
you want to add on?
No closing statements.
Yeah. I mean, I highly recommend it for the right reasons.
Yeah.
Getting into a situation like this, because it has been so rewarding and so bonding and so memory making in a really good way. Not just like, okay, you make memories doing hard things, because that is true, but also it's been really fun. And we have gotten into a really good flow, and I'm excited about the fall. And but I also would say, if like your marriage is in a tough spot, or your finances are in a really tough spot, or your health's in a tough spot, or your child training's in a tough spot, like I wouldn't recommend it. It's going to put major strain on everything, and you're going to either pull together, and if you have, I feel, strong ties, you're going to pull together, and you're going to get stronger.
Yes.
But if you don't, for all those things, like even the health thing, I do think it's made us more resilient. Health-wise, but it also is very taxing. So it's like this combination. I think it's been taxing on our marriage. I think it's made our marriage more resilient too. You know, our kids.
Yes.
It's been taxing on them. It's made them more resilient. So it's like, is it going to blow you apart, or is it going to like harden you? That's the question.
Yeah, that's a good point. And yeah, because like you said, if you're coming into the situation because you are in a tough financial spot, that would be very stressful.
Yeah.
Like I would look for other options than this.
Because your set of fixed expenses is kind of unknown.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I meant, like, I guess with the gear stuff, or with the, like, you don't know what you're going to need when. Like, is your generator going to just up and break and you need to buy a new one immediately because you can't survive without it, kind of thing? You know, you can always make do, but that can be very stressful and painful.
And we haven't done this, but feeling like, hey, Kate, we have money in savings if we need to go take a break and get an Airbnb for like a little while.
It's just
like
nice to know you have it.
You got that option. Or early on, before you like, we had a good routine and systems, and it was crazy hot, or it was pouring down rain the first week, not stressing about going out to dinner. Just being like, hey, not a huge deal. Let's go get dinner. So things like that made it a lot less stressful, I think. Yeah. Early
Yes,
on.
being able to go out to eat when things are not working out in a transition. That is a big blessing. I've been very grateful for Elisha when stuff has not worked out here, and he's just like, hey, why don't we go out to eat? Or I don't have groceries, I haven't thought ahead. And so that's an expense, and I'm grateful he hasn't. You've just been so gracious to do that for me.
Well, it's such a small part of our life relative to how you've always done things in our home. So it's just been different. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, folks, thank you all so much for listening. We'll wrap it up right here. We're done. Bye-bye.
Bye.